Okay, so I'm just going to go through my presentation. This should only take about 20 or 30 minutes, and I'll open up for questions or discussion at the end. All right. So water weight. Water weight is important because weight loss and fat loss are not the same. So a lot of times when we step on the scale, we look at that number as being an indicator of how successful we are with our nutrition program, or how successful we are with our exercise program. And although that the scale is an indicator of success, it is not an end-all be-all for showing your progress and how you're doing, because weight loss and fat loss are not the same. Okay, Adam, Sandy, if you guys can go ahead and mute yourself. I'm getting a little reverb. If you have a question, raise your hand and I'll stop and I'll call on you guys. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Adam, if you can mute yourself. Okay, I'm going to talk about the variables that affect water weight and tools that help track fat loss. Okay, so first of all, weight loss versus fat loss. One of my favorite sayings is that when the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to view every problem as a nail. All right, so when the only tool you have is the scale that you're using to measure your success, you tend to kind of see that as the only success or problem that you're having with your program. And for many people, this can cause yo-yo dieting, and yo-yo dieting can lead to muscle loss, and people are married to the scale. So once again, I sound like a broken record. The scale is not your only measurement of success. Okay, guys, this is a very important graph that I've drawn up here. This is how we anticipate our weight loss. When we start on a nutrition program and we're trying to get down to a certain weight, we think we start here at the starting weight, and if we keep on going down, we'll see a nice smooth slope until we get to our goal weight. Okay? But here's what actually happens. And, I drew this by hand. You actually can't go backwards in time on the chart here, but you guys get the drift. That you're going to have peaks and valleys when it comes to your success with your program, and also when it comes to your weight fluctuations. So you'll have, a drop, you may have a rise, a drop and a rise. And when we have those rises after those drops, these are rebounds where people get discouraged, and this leads to classic yo-yo dieting. Okay, but you have to look at here that the start weight and the goal weight are at that same level. It's just that the path to get there is more rocky. Okay, and this is what actually occurs during weight loss. Even if you're doing everything 100% correctly. Okay, you're still going to have fluctuations in your weight. It's just part of your body's process of homeostasis, of hormones, of salt levels, of water weight, all these sorts of things that interplay with that are going to affect the weight on the scale. Okay, so what this means is that we can look at it over a long-term basis, but there are going to be short-term setbacks when we look at that. Okay. So let's talk about weight loss versus fat loss. Some realistic expectations of fat loss is about 1/2 to 1 pound of true fat loss per week for women. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that can't be more. I'm just saying typically if you're taking a moderate approach to your fat loss, then it's not going to be much faster than that. Okay? For men, it's usually 1 to 2 pounds. So, ladies, if you want to get to that 2 pound range, we're talking about a pretty large deficit and not very many breaks that you get. So, if someone wants to go out on the weekend, or, if, somebody brings you something at work, we're talking about staying very strict. So I find that while having a little bit of freedom, 1/2 pound to 1 pound a week is a little bit more reasonable. Okay. So let's talk about weight loss versus fat loss. If we know that the number on the scale isn't the end-all be-all, what do we want to look at? Well, we do want to look at how to burn the highest ratio of fat. Okay, so if you lose a pound, I'm concerned with how much of that is muscle and how much of it is fat that was lost in that pound, and how much of it was water, and all other things considered. So number one, when you're trying to lose weight, you want to A, stimulate muscle preservation, and B, facilitate fat oxidation. So stimulate muscle preservation, what that means is that you have to stimulate your muscles in order for your body to send the signals for them to hold on to that lean mass. And that incorporates doing some sort of heavy weight training. Now heavy, not necessarily like Olympic lifting, or joining like a powerlifting competition, but I'm not talking about doing 100 reps of something. You know, usually typically something in the 1 to 12 to maybe even 15 rep range. Okay? Also, increasing your protein intake. And I know we're all guilty of this to some degree because it's just easier to eat carbohydrates. It's just easier to eat fats like a plate of nachos. Okay? But you need to increase your protein intake if you want to preserve your muscle mass. So lift those weights, eat that protein. But at the same time, you want to facilitate fat oxidation. Fat oxidation is just a fancy name for burning fat or reducing the amount of fat, otherwise known as adipose tissue, that you have. In order to do this, you want to decrease your caloric intake. So that means just eating less calories and increase your energy output. So that means more exercise. So eat less, move more. Out of those calories that you are eating less of, make sure that a higher degree of that is protein. And also when you're increasing your energy output, make sure that a portion of that is heavy weight training. So you can't just do cardio if you want to get the highest ratio of fat loss on your body. Okay? Alright, so some variables that affect water weight, and you see that I have the sign of Venus here, because women are much more drastically affected by water weight fluctuations. So gender is going to be a big one, especially as you're getting ready to go onto your cycle. Your weight's going to be up. So that can throw you off if you're using the scale as your only tool of success. Fluid intake and diuretics. So water weight, yes, the more water you drink, the more water that you will excrete. If you try to eliminate water weight by stop drinking water, what your body's going to do is it's going to create hormones that make you hold on to more water. And it's going to make you actually retain water. Okay? Carbohydrates. This is a huge component of water weight fluctuations. When you eat more carbohydrates, you store more water into the muscle in a form called glycogen. Okay, so for every 1 gram of glycogen you store in the muscle, you store 3 extra grams of water. Okay, so when somebody cuts carbohydrates and they see the needle move on the scale, they're like, "Oh my gosh, carbohydrates make you fat." No, what you're seeing is a outflux of water weight when you reduce carbohydrates. Okay, now reducing carbohydrates does have its time and place, but it is not a replacement for overall lessening in your calories. You have to eat a reduction of calories. It's not just a reduction of carbohydrates. So if you reduce 100, let's say 500 calories of carbohydrates, but you go and you eat an extra 500 grams of fat and protein, that's not going to do it for you. Okay. Moving on, calorie fluctuations. If you eat more calories one day, most of us are guilty on this on the weekends, so we often move less on the weekends, we're lounging around and we're eating more food. Yeah, your weight's going to be up on Monday, okay, and it might trend back down on Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Also, if you think about eating more calories, you have more digested food in your intestines, and so if you haven't used the bathroom, that can be a false indicator of being up in weight. Electrolytes, so we know eating high sodium foods, like salt is an electrolyte, for example, that can affect your water weight. Inflammation, if you're feeling, what happens when you hit your thumb with a hammer? Okay, it swells up, right? And it gets inflamed. If you have inflammation in your body, you're going to experience to some degree that kind of swelling effect and increase in cortisol. There's just a myriad of effects that could cause you to retain water weight in certain situations. And also random things. I've noticed that some days, on more humid days, my clients are up in weight. Stress, time of day, those sorts of things can affect water weight. So we know that water weight fluctuates by the hour and by the day, by the time of month, and that we can't be 100% reliant on the scale. But what we don't want to happen is we don't want to go from one extreme to the other, okay? Where, for example, on the right hand of the spectrum, if you're looking at just a small increase in water weight, you get discouraged and you go to that classic yo-yo dieting. But on the other hand, what we don't want is we don't want you to, every week you gain a pound, every week you gain a pound, and then 10 pounds later, you're still telling yourself, oh, it's just water weight, that's water weight, that's water weight, and, that's the other extreme that we want to avoid. So when is it not just water weight? Okay, so when do we actually have to look at that with a little more scrutiny? Weight fluctuations are natural and to be expected, but not used as an excuse for poor planning and execution of your nutrition and fitness. So you know that if you have, you guys know what you've eaten over the weekend, okay? You guys know if you've been doing your exercise, you've been logging your cardio, you've been making it to weight training. If you haven't been doing those things and you're up a pound, well, guess what? You've probably gained weight, okay? You've probably gained fat. If your weight does not drop after a few weeks, you're not retaining water, you're retaining food. Okay? So 3 weeks from now, if you haven't lost a pound, if you're still gaining, that's not water weight unless something really funky is going on. Okay? Or you gain or lose the same pounds for more than a few weeks. Alright? So if you gain a pound, if you lose a pound, if you gain a pound, if you lose a pound, you know that you're not successfully managing a caloric deficit, and you can't just blame it on water weight. If you're not following your nutrition program, so like I said, if you know that you're eating too much calories, obviously it's no mystery that you're going to be up in weight, and if you're not exercising. Okay? So you got to kind of ask yourself these questions. Where these variables that affect water weight, yeah, these are going to affect these in the short term, but over a longer period of time, let's say 3 weeks, you're not seeing a difference, then we know that it's an issue with calories. Okay? Or unless you got something else going on that wouldn't necessarily be a common thing. Okay? If you have some sort of condition that makes you hold on to water, or you're taking some sort of medication or something like that. But that is not within the scope of this talk. Okay. Got 3 more slides. Just hang with me for a few more minutes, y'all, and I'll open it up for questions. Tools that help track fat loss. Keep records of your food and exercise journal. Obviously, if you can look back at this and know that you're exercising right, if you know that you're eating the right amount of calories, you know that you're going to be on track. Okay? That's a great tool. This is a tool that looks at the process and not just the outcome. All right? So you want to look at what's leading up to, if you're not eating right, you're not exercising, should you lose weight? No. You can look at that and tell. Take a picture of yourself in the mirror every week. Okay, you can choose to do this one or not. Most people know how they feel in their clothes. You can use your a certain pair of pants as a guideline for that. Number 3, yes, you can use the bathroom scale. You can weigh, I recommend weighing once per week on the same time and day, each day, and compare your weights month to month. Now, there's nothing wrong with weighing yourself every single day, but my rule is that if you weigh yourself, you have to write it down. So get out of the habit of stepping on the scale just to look and see what it is, to see if it's up from after you ate a sandwich, or if it's up that night or whatever, and stressing yourself out. If you're going to weigh yourself every day, fine. Do it every day. Write it down. You can look back at those numbers and you can start noticing trends. If you want to weigh yourself once a week, fine. Write it down once a week. I don't recommend waiting longer than a week or doing it every month. You can compare it month to month, okay? But don't write it down once every month, because let's say that you're moving the opposite direction. Well, that's a whole 30 days, going in the wrong direction when that could have been corrected earlier. Use a measuring tape. I always ask people if they use this. Almost nobody does. Go around your belly button with a cloth measuring tape and use that as a way to track fat loss as well. And also a body composition device. That's what I have in my office. I can measure your guys' fat, the amount of fat that you have versus the muscle you have on your body to give you an idea there. And we're typically going to do that once every month, maybe once every 3 months. It's not something you want to do too often. Okay, so how should you use the scale? Like I said, weigh yourself consistently at the same time, day, wearing the same clothes. It doesn't have to be first thing in the morning, naked on the scale. It just has to be consistent. So if you just want to weigh yourself when you get off of work, wearing the same pair of shoes, that's fine, so be it. Just be consistent. Only weigh yourself if you're going to record your weight, so no sneaking peeks if you're not going to write it down. Or you can put it in MyFitnessPal if you guys use that. And only compare weight over a trend over a few weeks, not as a day-to-day or week-to-week. Kind of look at it as a snapshot over a longer period of time. Okay. So I have some goals for you guys. If you want to jot them down, you can. If you don't have an issue with this, that's fine. I find that a lot of people do. Do some self-measuring. Okay, it's fine to come weigh. If you work out, weigh yourself when you come in here. That's fine. If you want to weigh yourself at home, that's fine too. But weigh yourself at the same time and day every week. Okay, record that weight at home each time. Here's a link here. If you guys go on my FAQ page on my website, I have a little chart where it just has the date and the weight. You can write that down. You can make one yourself if you want to, or just use a scratch sheet of paper. And I'll record my waist, inches, and body fat percentage once a month at the beginning of the month. If you guys don't have a body fat percentage measuring device, just use a measuring tape, go around your waist. Okay? Or if you hold your weight in your hips and your thighs, you can use that as a measurement as well. Just go ahead and be consistent. I will make a point that some of you guys do have those scales at home that measure body fat percentage from your feet, like you step on it and it gives you an idea. I find those to be wildly inaccurate. The BEI, bioelectric impedance, is already a little bit, it has a little bit of variance. I'm not going to say it's inaccurate, but it has variance. If you do it from those home scales, I notice those to be wildly inaccurate. Okay, so you may just want to use either a pair of pants that you know that you fit well in, a measuring tape, along with the scale. Okay. So, in conclusion, then I'll open this up for questions. First of all, weight loss is not the same as fat loss. Okay, because we know that weight can fluctuate by the hour. Many different variables affect water weight and weight fluctuation. Use the right tools to keep you on track for fat loss. That includes keeping track of your exercise, your nutrition, your waistline, your body fat, as well as the weight on the scale. And don't get discouraged at occasional jumps in weight, but don't use it as an excuse either. Okay? I've had clients that come in and they're up and down, gaining and losing the same 2 pounds for months, and they want to say that it's water weight, but I mean, come on. After about a month of that, we know what's really going on is you're not making progress, and you got to drop your calories. Okay? So, that concludes my presentation and my part of the discussion on water weight. I hope you guys were able to get something from that. And if you guys have any questions, first, if you have any questions about water weight, go ahead and ask me questions. I'll be happy to answer them. Go ahead and type them in. Okay. Go ahead and type in your questions about water weight. And if you don't have any questions about water weight, then go ahead and you can ask me questions about anything. So go ahead and either type it in or ask me a question. I'll leave it open here for a few minutes. Let's see. Okay. Looks like I need to reload my page real quick. Let me do that. Sometimes this thing hits a snag. All right, guys, I just had to reload. Okay.
All attendees are unmuted.
All right, I'm going to unmute you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll wrap up the meeting. So I'll give it about 60 seconds here. Okay, Sharon, you got a question?
I do. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to cortisol and how it affects water retention.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Cortisol is a... I had a little bit of a squeak there. I think we're okay now. Okay, cortisol is a catabolic hormone. It's also known as a stress hormone that occurs when either your body's under stress, fighting sickness, or maybe even like the fatigue from like training really hard in the weight room. Okay, your body's going to release cortisol. Cortisol can cause you to increase your water weight, to my understanding, and the more cortisol that you have, the more water weight that you're going to have. But it does have its limit as to how much water weight you're going to gain in a normal person. So while you may even consistently be holding on to an extra 3 to 5 pounds of water weight from having an elevated cortisol level, that's not going to keep gaining. If you're keeping gaining and gaining and gaining time after time again, that's not going to be water. That's you're probably looking at an imbalance in your calories. I'm going to have to give you that answer right now with a grain of salt, because I am going to have to brush up on the specifics of the cortisol and water weight and retention. But to my understanding, it's not that big of a deal unless you really have something going on that your adrenals are just really making a very large and sustained amount of cortisol, which typically doesn't happen. Okay, we're talking about disease states, things like organ transplants with some serious medications kind of going along with some of that stuff, that might be an issue there. So I hope I was able to adequately answer that question, but I'm actually going to research that a little bit more and get back to you for a more full depth. Okay, great. Any more questions? One thing I will notice, I will mention as a observational point of view, is that sometimes when I've noticed that me or my clients have worked out really, really hard, and then we've also had time to replenish the water and replenish the calories and all that, if it's just been a very, very hard workout and I'm still very sore and repairing some of that muscle, I have noticed that I have been up a little bit in my weight, and I'm assuming that would be from like a metabolic stress, from kind of all the things going on in that cellular repair and whatnot. So I will also add that in kind of the relation to the cortisol, metabolic damage aspect of that question. So, okay, guys. Well, it doesn't look like I have any more questions. Thank you very much. I will, before I let you go, I do want to give you a link real quick, because I have decided to do this as a regular scheduled occurrence, And I really do encourage you guys to invite your friends to join in on this because I am doing these for free and I do want to help people. It's easier for me to do this way to help people. I can go over a topic and answer questions with a large group. I can actually have up to 200 people in a class, and the link that I gave you guys is on my website. It's to my online nutrition classes. So I'm going to do these every twice a month, and I have the topics written down that I'll be going over in the classes. So tell your friends, guys, that this will help me if any, possibly get extra clients. It'll help you help your friends, and I just really appreciate everybody who's came to listen in today. Stay tuned and check out the website, and you can also feel free to email me if you have any additional questions that you may think of later. All right, guys, this concludes my meeting. I'm out, and y'all take it easy and do good with your goals of recording your weight and keeping track of water weight as well. And I hope I was able to share at least a couple new sound bites of information today. Thank you.